Some Americans are never able to adjust to life in France, and they end up going back to the US. There was a really good example of this last week in the American news. But what went wrong?
Hi, I'm Raina.
I'm Jason. We're Baguette Bound.
Recently, there was this CNN article about an American couple named Joanna and Ed who moved to France, but after only 11 months, they were heading back to the US, disappointed and frustrated. I think literally everyone on the internet sent us this article. And while we were applauding that Joanna and Ed, they followed their dream, they moved, that takes guts.
Yep.
However, when we read the article, we pretty quickly saw like 4 easy traps that I think especially Americans tend to fall into when they're moving to France.
Yeah, the first one is, well, we Americans are really great at doubling down, getting stuff done. Patience is not really our strong suit.
Nope.
We force ahead. We know that we can make it if we just push a little bit harder. Just keep working. But when you're moving to France and transitioning to life here, you can't rush it.
So you may actually have to shift like your whole way of being. I know this has been true for me.
A good example of this was in the article when Joanna mentioned she was very busy after arriving in France and she never had time to hunker down and learn French. Very American. But this is just the wrong mindset. You absolutely cannot just hunker down, blast through this tough spot of learning a language, adapting to culture. Then when you're through it, you can just continue merrily on your way.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Moving to another culture, you're doing something that is going to take years, not months. It's going to be a process.
Don't let the American pressure to get things done quickly win out. It will make you feel as if you're always behind. But you're not failing.
No.
You just need a little more time.
Yeah.
Going home at 11 months was too early. You have to count on it taking at least 2 years to stop feeling like you're a fish out of water.
Yeah. The article also mentions some bureaucratic hurdles with their visas, their car, even their cat that Joanna and Ed were working their way through and that felt confusing and complicated. They just didn't understand why it worked the way it does, and they were super frustrated.
Yeah, well, France is not just the USA with much better bread.
No, you can't think of it that way.
They work differently here. Whether or not it makes sense to you, it doesn't matter. And the sooner you accept that and give up on fighting the system, the sooner you'll find some peace of mind with all of these things. Stressing about how these things don't make any sense, it doesn't help, and it will be exhausting. There are things with the French bureaucracy that even French people will tell you, this doesn't make any sense.
No.
But they don't let it ruin their lives. They just figure out what they need to do next, and then they do it.
Yeah. Sometimes you will get conflicting information. Sometimes you will be asked to do things you have already done. For example, I was asked to send my birth certificate 3 times before I got my carte vitale. I didn't question this. I just kept sending it. And one day, my carte vitale did show up.
Voila. Yeah. Really, the secret hack here is that you have to, if you have a choice, avoid these obvious hurdles if possible. If someone warns you, this is going to be a nightmare, expect it to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Don't take it as a challenge to be overcome.
We Americans are so competitive. Sometimes we're like, I can do this.
Yeah. For example, the big one, don't import your car. Just don't do it. Why go through this extra hassle? There are plenty of cars here in France. They're all over. Just buy one here.
Yeah.
You kind of have to go into every process with the thought that it's going to work differently than in the US, and that's okay. Just accept it, go with the flow, do the next thing in the process, and don't let it stress you out.
Yeah. Find peace. So Joanna goes on in this article to say that she hasn't been happy with the produce and the food in France. She especially singles out celery for being limp and old.
This one blew our minds, I think, because the best produce that we've ever had has been here in France.
The strawberries!
But she's absolutely right about the celery.
Yeah.
We see a lot of limp, really bad celery here at the supermarchés. But, I think why that is that because French people, they just don't eat a lot of celery.
Yeah.
You rarely even see it out at the fresh produce, the local markets.
Yeah, and that presents the problem here for a lot of Americans, which I think is, you look at French food and it has enough similar ingredients that when you move here, you may come with this thought that like you're just going to be able to make things at home like you did in the US, but you're just going to have better ingredients. That is not true. The meat cuts are different, the common seasonings are different, and there's beautiful vegetables at the markets, but some of them are ones we rarely use in the US, like endive.
What is an endive?
I know, I had to figure out what to do with it. So you get here and suddenly it feels surprisingly difficult to cook familiar things, even with all these beautiful products available.
Yeah.
I mean, my Pioneer Woman cookbook is almost useless here in France. I'm always missing just one particular ingredient or seasoning, the garlic salt, the mustard powder, although I had my family bring some of those.
There's absolutely no pepper jack cheese to be found anywhere in this country.
Nope.
You can't recreate your old life in a new country. This just leads to frustration. Instead, you've got to be open to relearning things and shifting to be in tune with your new home. Only then will it start to feel like home.
Yeah. Another thing Joanna said that I think many people worry about is social isolation, especially if you take the same position that she did in the article.
Yeah.
She didn't speak French, but she also did not want to hang out with other expats.
So who does this leave? It's just Ed?
Just Ed, yeah.
Moving is really hard. If you've ever moved within the US, you know this. You're kind of starting from ground zero with new friends. It's absolutely no different in a new country. And if you also take the attitude that despite the fact that you yourself are an expat, that you're somehow above hanging out with all the other expats who understand the challenges and situations you're going through, you're just missing out on a really easy way to connect with people.
Yeah. I mean, that said, of course, your goal is to integrate, to make French friends, because that is going to be like the richest experience of living in a new country. But usually that takes time. And in the meantime, don't be an expat snob. If that community is available to you in the place you landed in France, take advantage of it. I think Joanna would have been way less lonely if she had.
Yeah, sometimes people do ask us, well, do you hang out with French people or expats? And you have this feeling that they're waiting to judge you based on your answer.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of feels like the equivalent of that American, like, oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
Question, right? That that people use to place you in a box, into a social status. Honestly, it's all just so silly. Ultimately, we just need other humans, other people to connect with and share our life with.
Yeah. So no matter who you are or where you move, for better or worse, you are going to bring your perspective from your native country and culture with you. This can make moving to a new place and a new culture more difficult than you initially imagined it would be. And I mean, certainly it seems like that's part of what happened with Ed and Joanna.
Yeah, I think so. But this is not inevitable. Give yourself lots of time. Don't bring your car, and maybe just avoid the celery. You're going to be just fine.
Thanks for watching.
A bientôt.